Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2, part 2 of the Rotary Polisher series. First thing I want to mention for this video is that I am not the most knowledgeable person. There's tons for me to still learn, but I've picked up a lot of things over the years and been taught by a lot of things with product chemistry and materials and stuff from an absolute, what I consider a genius, former detailer for decades, painter, car restorer, engine builder and chemist as well. So he actually helped invent or co-invented the System 1 polish, the first spray-on polish, and the first and I believe only burn mark proof polish system where actually you cannot put a permanent or full-on burn mark in a panel. You can feel it grab and leave a little tiny mark and then you polish it out, whereas traditional systems the solvents would basically dry out and take all the other lubricants with it, and you're using an aggressive foam like a Maguire's Burgundy or something even stronger than that. It can suddenly dry up and just grab and just rip and put a big burn mark in it. So we're going to talk about wool pads, a bit of wool pad wisdom here to do with rotary, because rotary conventionally wool pads were all where they were, and now we've got foams and microfibers and denims and all sorts of things, but wool is still used quite a lot, and there's some good technology wools now as well. So what I want to do is grab the camera, show you the screen and show you a bunch of different wool pads and what pads you use, what particular wools you use, the thickness of the backing plate that you use, the size of the pad, and a lot of other things can determine how aggressive or not aggressive you can be, and actually how you can either leave no marring, no hologramming, or make it extremely fine on most paints. Some soft paints that won't like it, but most paints that are soft, medium, hard, you won't have an issue. So let's grab the camera and start off. Now I'm going to show you the Lake Country Manufacturing pad chart here. So according to them, the most aggressive wool you can get is 100% twisted wool. That's natural wool, and that is 4-ply. I believe that is more aggressive than 1-ply twisted wool. Then you've got 50-50 wool polyester. Then you've got twisted wool. I'm not a huge fan of twisted wool and acrylic pads. I find that they create more heat. The acrylic can leave swirl marks, and I believe there's a higher risk of burning the paint with a conventional polish or compound with those. Now that may not be absolutely necessary, but that's what I've been told, and what I've experienced with twisted wool and acrylic wool pads combined is not good results. Then next grade down as far as aggressiveness is the 100% untwisted wool, so basically straight fibers. I'm not sure if they're 1-ply or 4-ply or double-ply or whatever, but basically they're an untwisted straight wool. Then you've got 50-50 4-ply wool acrylic, and then you've got 60-40 untwisted, and then silk wool. And over here we've got most aggressive is a pre-washed lamb's wool, low lint lamb's wool, purple foamed wool, which is has nanofoam particles in there, and blue hybrid foamed wool as well, which is a little bit less aggressive, and then knitted wool, electrified wool as well. The other thing to consider with wool pads is basically they have different naps, nap heights. So they are different heights. So some will have a 3/4 inch nap, 1 inch nap, 2 inch nap. And the taller that the fibers are, the more they're going to bend, and the more they're actually going to be less aggressive and sweep over the panel, rather than being really thin. And basically, if they're thinner, the nap is thinner, they will generally be more aggressive than one that's got, say, a 1.5 to 2 inch thick, a 2 inch tall nap. So that has an effect on how aggressive you are as well. The other thing with wool pads is, that can determine things, is what grade are they? So let's go here. Here's some 14.6 ultrafine grade merino fleece. Wool comes from a variety of countries, and there are different grades. And how do they grade them? They are micron tested. There is a thing where they actually test all of them, and some of the best wools, as far as ultrafine and superfine grade, as far as quality goes, comes from Tasmania and New South Wales. New Zealand has some excellent superfine grade wools as well. And you have Turkish wool comes from Turkey as well, and there's Irish merino wool as well. So there's a lot of different ones, and you can have actually such ultra fine wool that it's recorded at 10 micron. That's extremely fine. Now, I don't know if there's any ultra fine grade buffing wool pads out there, but if so, my guess would be, and I could be wrong, that they would be less aggressive than say something like a 16, 18 or 20 micron fine grade wool. So there's that to consider. Now, the Asian wool pads that have been around for a while, and now Rupes have got as well, are more designed for DA. They are a thinner, non-twisted, I believe, non-twisted. I'm not sure 100%, but basically they're knitted. These ones here from Buff and Shine are actually knitted, and that's their newest line. And they work on rotary and on DA and forced rotation as well. But all these things can determine what results you get. There is even from microsurface finishing products who make micro mesh sanding discs, which are up to 12,000 grit or 12,000 grade. They have what's called the Tough Buff wool. It's actually a black natural wool, and it has 60,000 fibres per square inch, and is quite interesting. So here's some of the info about it right there. Leaves less swirling or scratches than conventional wools or even synthetic ones. More durable fibres can be compressed and still recover their natural shape. Dense pile applies and distributes the polishes more evenly. So very dense pile, 60,000 fibres per square inch. So obviously the surface area potentially could be higher, which means you get more correction, faster correction, and 3/4 inch nap is what those are. So there's a lot of things that determine how well a wool pad is going to correct, but also how well it can finish. And people say, oh, wool pads are horrible, they're terrible. Well, if you keep them clean and you use the right ones on the right paints, they can do very good work and leave very little marring or hologramming, sometimes even none on a rotary, or no haze on a DA. And there are some paints that won't like them, they're too soft or they're too finicky or whatever, but it is achievable. So here is the Kamikaze Banzai Dynamics Hybrid Wool Pad. So this is an Asian style pad, and they work particularly well as well. And then of course you've got hybrid wool, so this has got foam in there as well, so it gives a wool cut with a foam-like finish. It'll finish nicer. And you've also got the purple foamed wool, which is a bit more aggressive again. So going back to the chart, I lost my chart, where the hell did that go? Basically, I'll just find that again. Oh, that's all right, I'll leave it anyway. Yeah, so the hybrid wools are maybe a step down from, here we go. Are a step down basically from, whoops, too far. Damn it, sorry about that. So the hybrid wool is a step down from the purple wool here. So you could be using this with a compound of choice, or this, and the wool could be steamed. It could be unsteamed, which means the steam. What happens with steam? If wool pads are steamed, it fluffs up the fibres and basically makes them go bloom and go plush. So that has an effect. So there's a lot of variables to determine, basically what results you get. So yes, let's say had medium hardness paint, like a Falcon or a Commodore, something like that. If you go really, really thin napped, 100% 4-ply twisted wool on a rotary, you are going to get a lot of cut. You're going to get a lot of defect removal. Your finish could be okay, could be good, could be excellent. It depends on the paint and your technique and how well you clean the pad. The biggest problem that I've seen with body shops anyway over the years, not all bad, there are some really good ones, is that they just don't keep their pads clean. They don't clean the pad with air or spurring it with a wool pad spur or whatever method to keep the pad clean, and the paint residue and the fact that some of the compounds out there are so dry and pasty that they actually don't give the finishes they should. And people go, oh, those wool pads are crap. They scratch and they mar and they hologram and swirl. Well, you know, there's a lot of variables, but if you don't keep your pads clean, and if you've got to keep wool pads, in my opinion, from my experience, someone might have a different experience, you've got to keep wool pads moist. If you use a pasty, dry compound where the individual fibers of the wool get dry and they don't stay moist, and what happens is they basically hang on to the polish residue, the paint residue then as well, and it scours, it mars, it holograms, and you can get a result basically like this, or even worse, or you can get it where it finishes extremely well. One of the ones I actually just sent to my students is here, and if I load that up real quick, this is 2014. I sanded, well, three of us sanded the panel, the whole car, sorry, up to about, by hand, but now I do it with machine, up to about 3,000-4,000 grit. Now we've got 5 and 8 and all that sort of thing. And then if we look at basically after the first step with a wool and a rotary with an excellent product, that's the result. Now there's no full sun shot or LED light shot there, but you can see that it is not dull, hazy, scratchy or swirly. So my advice is that wool is a good product. It's a good pad. You just got to use it on the right paints. Keep it clean, keep it moist, use a compound that isn't dry and dusty and horrible, it isn't claggy, use something that'll stay moist or help it to stay moist. Always have a nice moist film of polish on the surface. You do that and often you will finish well. And finish with your pad flat if you tilt it on a rotary, or if you're using a DA, you know, you can't really tilt too much with those, but finish with the pad flat. If you're using a diminishing abrasive polish, slow the machine speed down, increase your arm speed, that's less aggressive, and obviously, you know, you will get an excellent result. So that's just a little bit of wisdom with wool pads. These are some of the super fine grades you can get from a European company. These are New Zealand wool, and they are available, and they're quite affordable. They're a bit of a conventional design on the back, but they're an excellent super fine grade wool that will correct pretty well, and they'll finish a lot better than your typical half-inch napped 4-ply twisted wool pad. So whether they're steamed, unsteamed, you know, the nap height, the type of wool and all that sort of thing can determine so much of your results. So if you don't think much of wool pads, perhaps this might give you some insight and help you to get a better result. I would say start off with if you're using a DA, use your Asian style wools, you know, your Rupes blue and yellows, they're fantastic. The kamikazes and any other Asian style pad that's basically thin, might have a bit of foam in the middle as an interface, but has quite a thin nap and has straight fibres. And one last thing, of course, real quick, is if you keep those fibres moist. The reason why you get wool pads can leave random scratch swirls and holograms, that sort of thing. Obviously, rotary is one reason why you can, but it's also that. What was I thinking there for a second? Basically, you've really got to keep them clean, and you've got so many fibres. Each has their own amount of polish on there, might have different amounts of paint residue, and every little one, if it's not kept clean, isn't moist, the residue isn't kept away with regular cleaning throughout the job, like in each section, as you do each section, it can inflict its own mark, and you could have 60,000 fibres with these tough buffs basically leaving their own individual marks and different levels of marring on the paint, because this one, for example, is dry. These are wet and moist, and the residue is not very high. This one's clogged with residue, and they've got all these different fibers doing their own thing. So you can get all these random marks, even sometimes with a DA. So if you keep them clean, keep them moist, and use a polish that is more runny and wet and stays nice and oily, and isn't so dry, dusty and pasty or claggy or like a wet paste like some still are, you will get a better finish. And one example is, I used to use the expert joining polish on a wool pad with a rotary or a DA, mini DA, and it took longer to correct, but the actual results I got as far as the finish was like a foam pad. Took a bit longer, but I was doing small sections. I got a better finish, and the wool pad actually felt and looked better after I used it than the same grade and brand of wool pad that I used with a compound. It actually was fluffy, it felt soft. The compound one felt